Welcome to the double show.
Whoa, welcome to the double show. Jeez, Nico, producer Nick stitched me up there. I've heard the last 1 second of the introduction there.
I thought you were wanting me to do the introduction for once. I thought it's my lucky day. But
baited you. Cuz anytime you want, you just
you talk faster than me, so I struggle to get in. Hey, there's a famous saying that there's no such thing as a good day or a bad day, just days where you learn a little and days where you learn a lot. And you've had a day where you've learned a lot, haven't you?
I'm learning a lot. It's not even in the past yet, Cats. Sometimes it's okay to just feel a little overwhelmed. And that would be
I'll tell you what you should do.
Right now.
Go home, turn on Netflix and start watching The Inside Man. Have you heard of it?
Ooh, no. I haven't even heard of it. Not even in barbecue discussions.
Cousin Joel put me onto it, so I'm surprised that didn't come up given that he was at your house yesterday,
I
correct?
saw him yesterday.
He put me onto Inside Man. What it is, Nico, producer Nick, I know this will be right up your alley as well because it's about a guy that kills people. I'm interested, he says.
Oh, yeah, you must be talking about producer Nick's Crime Stoppers picture for last week's pod.
Yeah, he single-handedly took down Medibank. It is about a guy who gets convicted for killing his wife, which is not good, very bad guy. But what he then goes and does is solves crimes whilst on death row. The warden brings him some unsolvable crimes that just cannot be solved, and he goes and solves them on death row.
What?
Was a criminologist in before obviously he got convicted.
Wait, it's a doco or it's fiction?
4-episode TV show. Just 4 episodes.
No.
1 hour each.
No. That, you know what? Thank you, because that is this sounds messed up, but that's exactly what will cheer me up. Because, no, not in that sense. I love true crime, the psychology of it. My true crime buffs, they just get it. I don't have to explain it to them. They just get it. We get each other. That would
and it's one of those, there's
really
some shows that are dramas that can do the drama stuff and the crime stuff really well, but introduce humour. And that's what this show successfully does. It finds that right balance between a bit of humour where you sort of laugh a little, but also at the same time, it's got the crime sort of aspect to it. So, look, I'm not doing it any justice. Watch it. Only 4 eps. You will thank me later.
Oh, thank you, but 4 eps, what if I'm left wanting more? By the way, that's actually very left of field for you. Anytime I suggest something in the true crime world, you say, that's too stressful. You're not about those stressful shows, those depressing shows.
I'm enjoying it.
So that little 10% of humour must have got you over the line. Speaking of Netflix.
Okay. I was going to ask you if you've looked at your Netflix package yet, given that I think last Friday they introduced the new model where you can pay for the real basic version with ads, and then they've got like 2 other different categories now. There's like a premium and then a sort of, I guess, an entry level with no ads.
Look, it's very smart. I quite like it. I think the cheapest one now, it puts that to $6.99, $7 or whatever it is, and you might see a few ads here and there. You can pay $11 or $10.99. It must be a little. It definitely must work, that whole $0.99 thing, or standard of $17. I'll probably pay the sort of higher standard. I gotta say it's terrible because they've got us so used to no ads that they're smart. I think most people are going to go for the no ad.
I've heard though that it's 4 minutes of ads at the start of the show. So like I don't know about you, but I'm normally like I'll put the TV on, click play, and while it's doing the intro, I'll get up and go and make myself food or something like that. So to be honest with you, if the ads are just at the start and not in the middle, like some of those YouTube ads, I'm really not fazed.
You're speaking to a skip intro type operator, cuz. Get me straight into the blood and gore of whatever true crime that I'm watching. Like, I'm ready. Popcorn in the lap, like, let's go. Let's get into the show.
I think we've got the title of the pod. For those who are listening and curious, $6.99 basic with adverts. There's then a basic version which is $10.99, so call it $11, where basically you got the same except you don't have the ads. Then you've got a standard version which has got better video, and then the premium one which has got your 4K plus HDR, and I think unlimited. I think there might be some differences on the amount of accounts that you can have running on those as well, but big variance from $7 all the way up to the premium, which is $23 these days, and now 4 different options.
Very interesting.
Anyway, and one last thing before we get into the stat fact, because we're going to do it straight off the top today. At work, we're doing passion projects, and I'm rostered on this week. So we've got a Zoom every morning. We're going to talk about what our passion project is. What's yours?
I already know. I can figure out what yours is going to be. I can figure out what yours is going to be.
I have no idea what yours is.
Oh, mine, working for free. I love working for free. I volunteer on a charity. I chair a property organisation. I love working for free. It's my passion. No, my passion project is Melbourne Basket Brigade. I run a Christmas charity. Thank God it's only at our Christmas. It is a passion project though. It's so much work,
coming
but it's the best
too.
or whatever.
Coming up,
basically
Good plug.
No, but coming up, we're in the middle of it. We've had awesome corporate donations this year. Basically, me and an amazing committee of 7 ladies at the moment, plus myself, just happened that way. We fundraise money, toys and food all throughout the year to lead up to a massive packing weekend where we pack 1,000 hampers of food and wrap about 1,600 kids' toys, and we distribute those to families around Melbourne. So we have about 200 volunteers come and join us on that packing weekend, and we form this huge production line that's extremely efficient, bangs out 1,000 hampers. All these families are wrapping toys. There's scissors everywhere, bloody sticky tape. It's a workplace health and safety nightmare, but it's all in the spirit of Christmas and the spirit of giving, cuz that's without a doubt my passion project. I reckon yours is sorry to just go from one thing to the other. I reckon yours is your lawns.
Yeah, it is.
Your lawns, is that right?
Yeah, it is. Made me feel guilty. There's nothing charitable about it.
I mean, you know what, cuz? Passion project.
Yeah, right,
it's not about
hero.
guilt. What's the bet you knew what my passion project was anyway?
It actually is good timing though. I'm glad we brought it up because we're like on the doorstep of Christmas. People might actually think to get involved. It's good. All right, I haven't read this stat fact thing, so I'll let you carry this one.
You put in what?
No, this was already in there.
How did you categorize it if you hadn't read it? Anyway, yeah, let's do it. Whoa, it's a long stat fact.
All right, producer Nico, get us going. Give us the stinger. We love it.
Stat fact.
The stat man.
Stat fact. Oh, look who doesn't shimmy this time. Jimmy, don't shimmy.
Anyway, well, we had to do a rerun of this whole segment because you forgot your own stat fact, but go on, as you do. Good job.
Good job. Now, this is a funny article. Producer Nick and I were talking about this. Harsh headline, young people poorer than parents. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess no shit, as producer Nick said. But the stat fact is that the median retiree pays no income tax despite the typical retired person having more than $500,000 in wealth. I mean, you know, they're retired. They should. But in contrast, the typical worker between the age of 35 and 44 pays about $13,000 in income tax despite having less than half the wealth. It's an interesting discussion, probably not for unpacking today, but you would think in your retired years, owning your own home or, you know, a property supplementary to that alongside your super, maybe other investments along the way, the retiree should probably be wealthier than the average, quote, young person today.
Well, I mean, the rationale of the pension when it first originated, more than half a century ago, was that the average Australian only lived to be about 65, 70, and it kicked in at, I think, 55, 60. So you only earned it for like 5 or 10 years. What's different today is that the average Australian lives to be about 85, so you've got the pension for about 20 years. So the basic premise way back when it first started, I think was in the 1930s from memory, was that, the working population would prop up the elderly who've done the hard yards, laid the foundations, probably given their offspring a bit of a head start in life. It wasn't really set up, though, where the working population funds retirees for 20 years. It was based off a whole different set of demographics at the time. It's a good point, though.
Yeah. So, no, look, it is, and it's just interesting. And that's why it's a stat fact.
Nice. Hey, I like it. And I wanted to move into this next. I played around with the run sheet. I want to talk finance because I'm noticing there's a fair bit that our listeners should know, and it's been kickstarted by my own experience last week. I rang my bank up and I said, guys, what is going on with my interest rates? Because I don't know if I'm on some variable rates, and I don't know if you're getting this at the moment, but I'm getting a letter every month. And it's like a little bit dispiriting because I'm often getting multiple letters on multiple loans, and then there's my wife's loans. So it's like 4 letters turn up to tell you the same thing, that your rates have gone up. Anyway, open them and Hans
What's it going to be this month?
Got cheaper rates than me. And I said, what? We've got the same kind of general deal. Why has she got a cheaper rate?
No, she always loved a bargain, hun. She always loved a bargain. And mate, she's avoided many shells.
Rang the bank, told them my predicament and said, I'm sort of feeling like it's a bit hard. I'm a hard done by. I was at 6.5% on that phone call, got dropped straight away to 5.8. And then what the lady said on the phone is she said, oh, by the way, we haven't revalued your property. If we revalue your property and it comes in at a certain figure, it'll put you in the next loan to value ratio rung, and that'll drop you down to 5.25%. In the space of a phone call, I went from 6.5 to 5.25, saved me $5,500 a year just on one loan.
Good job. Wow. And imagine doing that across multiple loans. We're talking 15 to 20,000 buccachinos.
Tell you what.
That is amazing. But I will say this, cuz banks are chasing business again. And this is something that we're starting to see
we saw
a little
lot of
bit
it in
more
COVID,
of.
didn't we? It sort of started a couple of years ago and then they stopped doing it, cashbacks and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, we had a Royal Commission into banking at the start of 2019, and it put a little bit of a screeching halt to people's general borrowing capacities, and then banks were trying their hardest to win people's loans or new loans or refinances. And it does seem that we are sort of getting back to a similar is the loose word that we're using, time. We've got here one of many examples, but UBank, who are owned by NAB, they're currently offering 4.49% interest rate, obviously always subject to change, and a $6,000 cashback. Now, interesting, there's obviously some T's and C's. It's got to be 80% LVR.
And more than $1 million.
Is it? Over $1 million, over $1 million of debt. But it does make it compelling because say you've got break fees elsewhere, right? You're stuck somewhere on 5.5% to 6%, and there are break fees. Your $6,000 cashback, theoretically, and maybe that's why they're doing it, covers your break fees and completely justifies you moving from Bank A to UBank, owned by NAB. Very interesting. And sorry, I missed the point there further. They've got a similar deal under $1 million borrowings. Still has to be 80% loan to value ratio, and they'll give you a $4,000.
Yeah, they're all doing it. Westpac are doing $2,000 cash back at a lower rate, 4.24%. ANZ and Suncorp are at $4,000 as well. And CommBank, I'm trying to remember I think it's called U-Loans, but CommBank have got one where there's no cash back, but they offer a 4.04% interest rate. So really, really cheap interest rate to get you in. Certainly I think you need to be prepared to shop around today And if you take that mindset in that you might have to move your loans around and don't sort of get emotionally tied to a bank, I think you can save a lot of money today. I did also note that there was an article talking about all this saying that 75% of all Australians bank with the big four banks. I did not know that. That's a lot of people.
I didn't know that either. That's it. That's way majority better fact.
A majority of these banks that are offering the neat deals aren't the big four banks. So I think, you probably are paying a little bit extra to be with the big four today because, they get so much market share. On a similar vein, the September loan data came out last week. And on the face of it, it was it painted us a picture of maybe things not going so well and not as many people wanting to borrow money. $25 billion worth of loans in September. And the reason I say that it painted that picture is that number was just under 10% lower than the August number and nearly 20% lower than the same month last year. But if you actually look a little bit further back than last year, the numbers are still pretty high, aren't they?
And this seems to be a bit of a theme that we're starting to look at post-COVID world, where we're comparing realistic comparables to a similar time, so pre-COVID. So looking at, where we were at the end of 2019 in terms of loans and I guess borrowings and I mean, maybe not quite interest rates, but, that kind of thing. And it's painting a much more accurate comparison because comparing to the previous months or the previous year when we're at the height of people buying, the height of lowest interest rates in history, it's going to paint out of context painting.
Yeah, I mean, really, people forget too that the Reserve Bank interest rate was 0.1% this time last year. So it's happened pretty quickly. If you compare the September numbers with 2019, which was the last time that we had, call it normal interest rates, we're actually 39% higher. So that figure in September was 39% higher than September 2019, meaning that basically loans are up by more than 30% since the last time that rates weren't at those pandemic lows. And interestingly, it was the investors that were driving it, 68% increase in investor loans. Whereas you wouldn't think that from reading certainly the article on the face of it, but also, if you're just comparing the numbers with this time last year.
And, like the skeptic might say, well, yeah, of course investors are because they're investors and rates are going up and rents are going up so they can afford it. But owner-occupiers are actually taking out 29% more loans as well.
Banks are still willing to lend money and people are still wanting to take the money out. Not as many as this time last year, but if you're sort of comparing it to pre-pandemic, there's still a fair bit going on.
And can I just give a little bit of a first-hand insight as well? Dean and I went to look at a house in Elwood on the weekend for shits and giggles. We're having a think, having a look, and this house was taken off the auction market in September. And I said, it's quite a nice house. I would have thought this is going to sell very easily. I sort of said to the agent, I was like, why did it sell and then they couldn't get finance or what happened? And he just said, no, the problem that we're having is that you buy at auction and you sign an unconditional formal approval, whereas now we're moving to a more private not necessarily off market, but private sale market so that people have the opportunity to ensure that they can borrow the funds to buy the house. We're still selling. We're doing some sensational deals. There's just that, more I guess conservative view of a buyer's ability to borrow, without sort of getting a pre-approval with interest rates changing quickly and then buying at auction, signing unconditional with things maybe changing. They're just sort of doing a bit more DD, but they're still buying, and this sort of feeds into that they're still.
And it's funny you say that. Like I was speaking with a friend, a client who is now a friend, and I think you'll know who I'm talking to, but I'll leave names out for privacy reasons. He's got 13 properties, and I was talking to him last week, and I said, anyone who's more successful and experienced than me, I always like to ask them what's been the hardest part to achieve what you've achieved? Like having 13 properties, I don't know. I don't know how many Australians would have 13 properties, but it'd be like less than probably 1,000, right? I said, what was the hardest part in doing what you've been able to do? And he said, without a doubt, he didn't even hesitate. He said, getting finance. He said, ever since like property number 3, it's been an absolute battle to get finance. He said, every single time I've got to shop around with my rates. I've got to move to different lenders that are wanting to lend money at the time because, you go through, he describes it, you go through periods where like the big 4 want to lend a lot of money and then you go to, the second tiers and then some non-banks. And he just said all the way, it's never been an issue of having the equity. It's never been so much an issue of cash flow, although he's had to obviously manage that. He said it's always the hardest part has been getting the borrowing capacity to do something. He said, I've just had to be so flexible to chop and change and move around to be able to make it happen. He said, otherwise, if I wasn't as flexible, I'd have half the number of properties.
Couldn't agree more with his sentiment, although I do not have 13 properties, but I couldn't agree more. That is the hardest part.
I found it in my own journey. Yeah. Definitely. It's tough.
It's that cheesy saying like if it's easy, but it's actually not simple because no one wants to do all of that admin and paperwork. It's actually very easy. You've just got to make the time to do the damn thing. It's easy, but it ain't simple.
Amen. Hey, sticking with the theme of banking, Westpac came out last week, produced their financial results, and there's nothing in the results that interested me, but what did jump out? The banks yet again made a lot of money. That was
very profitable.
Yet again, the banks made billions of dollars. The number that jumped out is that delinquent loans, so loans that are 90 days behind or more in their loan repayments, they actually dropped to a extremely low, in their words, 0.75% of all loans, which is down from roughly double that this time last year. So there's half the amount of people that are sort of behind on their mortgages as there was last year. And it's the lowest it's been since September 2018. So clearly, even with interest rates increasing, people are coping with it okay.
It really defies this doom and gloom logic, or logic might not be the right word, but this doom and gloom picture of interest rates, debilitating everybody. So I quite like that stat, cuz, and this actually dovetails quite well on that. And that's actually credit card debts also falling. So basically, the stat is that credit card bills for households dropped by $144 million. So it's still, high, $16 billion, but it's actually the lowest level since March 2003.
Wow.
That's like
I do
nearly
wonder
20
though,
years.
is the Afterpay, Zip, all those buy now, pay laters replacing credit cards? That wasn't quite clear in that bit of data that you sent.
Cuz interesting. I don't use any buy now, pay later, and I got a credit card that allows $1,000 for bits and pieces, but I would have thought that a credit card is a lot easier to use like on multiple transactions than an Afterpay, but I don't know. So, please don't be angry if I've incorrectly
some homework, for Sammy.
Essentially
Statsman Sam, there you go. Let's go find out. We'll come back to the guys. Hey, I thought I'd stick with the theme of lessons learnt because that's been your sort of steez in this podcast. FTX collapse. Did you read about that? The Bitcoin exchange, which folded, the biggest ever Bitcoin exchange to fold with 1.2 million customers at an awkward time too, because they were sponsoring the T20 World Cup, which just finished on the Sunday. So you saw their names everywhere at the same time that they were going broke. Not the best branding. Do you follow that one?
No. And quite frankly, I'm so far not followed it, I can't even find it in the notes.
Well, 1.2 million people use the exchange. It's not clear how many Australians use it. But what happened?
So So they exchange their regular money into
basically they buy crypto
Bitcoin.
and Bitcoin specifically through this FTX, which is an exchange platform. Turns out though that what they were actually doing is they were selling what they call paper Bitcoin, or basically an IOU. Whereas people thought that they were buying actual Bitcoins. I'm sure it was disclosed, but it wasn't clear. In any event, there started to be some rumours swirling around that they might have been having some financial challenges. Investors tried to withdraw $6 billion in 72 hours.
Oh.
And they didn't have the money.
Dear. That sounds scammy to me. I listened to a great podcast called Missing Crypto Queen, and it's scam in the crypto world.
There's some heavy hitting celebrities who have endorsed FTX. Bit of collateral damage for people's brandings caused a 20% slide to the value of Bitcoin, which on the weekend was trading at about 17,000 US dollars, which is a long way from the $64,000 that it was trading at this time last year. Ouch. So look, a lot of people made huge money out of Bitcoin. We know a few of them. I think the message is if you do invest in it, you really have to make sure, number one, it's a sum that you can probably afford to lose or lose part of. But also I think, and I don't know the answer, but clearly there's some places out there where you're not actually buying the Bitcoin asset, which wouldn't sit comfortably for me. I think at least if you own the asset, you can afford to ride it out, in terms of the value going up and down over time.
I'm sure many listeners will be shaking their heads, but May did agree with you on that one. Kaz, question for you. Do you use Uber or do you use Lyft? Interesting
that you say that. I have used Uber and Didi. I've not used Lyft. It's the one that I haven't. But I did notice that, in fact, I noticed some really positive numbers come out of Lyft, but they got smashed for them. They were growing, they were profitable, and they were making more money, and their share price dived. Talk me through that one.
Well, yeah, so I've never used Lyft either, right? But I recall Uber going through something similar where their market cap was astronomical, but they were also sort of like losing money. So, tech, I suppose. But ride-sharing company is what Lyft is, by the way, LYFT. They announced their profit and revenue increase, but their share prices fell. So revenue, $1.05 billion for the 3 months up to September, which is actually 22% above the same time last year. Makes sense, actually. Profit of 66 million, cuz. It's a nice number. And just to throw in a few more numbers there, 20.31 million riders in that
3 months.
So you and I not using Lyft is in the very small, I think we're in the minority, evidently. But yet their share price fell 13% in a day. And apparently the reason being is that the market was expecting them to grow by way more, like 1.16 billion revenue with a $85 million profit instead of a $66 million profit and a higher amount of riders. I thought those numbers were really impressive, but that's because I don't use them. So I'm shocked at, the take up on the app and the user base. But it just goes to show what was expected to be, despite doing well but falling short, has perhaps disincentivized
some tough critics. I think what happens with a lot of those fast-growing companies, the share price trades based off what it's going to be worth in the future. So when it doesn't grow as quickly as it's expected to, you're right. They probably get harshly penalised because there's some pretty impressive numbers. 20 million rides in the space of 3 months. That's a huge company. I wonder if that makes it bigger than Didi. Maybe it is. Anyway, I'm getting Lyft. I'm going to download Lyft.
Makes us
I'm going to download Lyft.
Do it. Because I think we've got so much in this spread, but, I want to get the people to work awake, not asleep, assuming they're listening on their way to work. So, do you want to wrap it up?
Okay, one last. A couple of things. Just before we do, tennis deal. The tennis deal got done. I love that one. $125 million higher than the previous deal. $425 million thought I'd put that one in there. And this other one, good news hotline to finish. You would be very happy if you're a shareholder in Origin. So Origin is the energy company in Australia. They've had Brookfield and EIG offer them $9 a share, total of $18 billion, which, get this, the share price was $5.70 when the offer was received. Ooh. So nearly 60% premium, and it's been going on for a while. They've been making offers, not getting accepted. The last time that the Origin price traded at $9 was all the way back in 2018. So good news day for shareholders in Origin. All right, time for you to go. You have put in an honest day's work. You've learned a bit. Time to get home, download Inside Man, change your subscription on Netflix.
Hopefully to the cheaper variety with no ads, and I'll probably knock off with a bit of a Love Island episode.
Whoa.
Guys, Yellowstone this week. What the hell are we talking about? Anything else?
All right, producer Nick always comes through with the goods. Yellowstone comes out on the 17th. I have to re-download Stan.
No, isn't it today?
It's today. I have to re-download Stan.
Oh, my God, cancel everything.
One last thing, Alex. How do people get involved in the Basket Brigade if they want to? I forgot to ask you that earlier.
Oh, great question. Just email me. My email's in the show notes, because if you're in Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, they've got all different basket brigades. I run the Melbourne Basket Brigade, but I can connect you with Brisbane or even Gold Coast, cuz. And I know that you do your yearly deliveries, so I really hope that you're on board.
That's
again
a good cause.
year.
You can either pack the boxes on the Saturday or deliver them on the Sunday in your car. I've done both.
Yes.
I prefer the delivery. I think the delivery is always the one that people or the basket brigade struggle to fill, at least in Brisbane. A little bit harder to fill than the packing of the boxes. So, but whatever you're able to do, whatever you're able to contribute, they're always, you met some good people and they're always very, very happy to have you help.
Absolutely, cuz it's one of the most fulfilling experiences I've ever had and continue to have yearly. You deliver these hampers to families who, some of them have got nothing. So you have a bit of a reality check and realise that your life, even if you're listening to this podcast, is a privilege. So it's the most humbling and best human connection experience that one can ever have. So I really encourage you to do it. Do a good deed leading up to Christmas. Make yourself feel good, make others feel good. We all feel good.
Amen. Have a good one, guys.
Thanks for listening to another episode of The Double Shot with your favourite cousins, Alex and James Fitzgerald. If you've got a burning question or something we absolutely need to talk about on the pod, please write to us. Both of our emails are in the show notes. For little real estate tidbits and a little bit of banter, a lot of banter, you can follow us on the gram. Our handle is thedoubleshot.podcast. That, my friends, is thedoubleshot.podcast. Until next time, think of us when you sit back and sip your next double shot.